I am Lawrence Henderson with Business Operational Support Services, LLC, aka Boss. And today I have the privilege of having a brother in arms, Bo. And Bo, tell people who you are.
Hey, thanks, Lawrence. I really appreciate the opportunity to come and talk to you and all of your listeners and so forth. As Lawrence said, my name is Bo. That's what I go by. It's what my parents gave me since I was a little one. Robert is my first name. So I always put out there, my editor for my books always said, hey, once your first book goes out there and this is the name you put on that book, you got to go with it. Right. Yep. That's otherwise you'll never be found. People won't know how to find you. So on everything, it's Robert Bo Brabo, and the Bo is in quotes. Seems kind of odd, but I guess, Google search is about the only way it works is for you to stay consistent with what you call yourself.
Exactly.
So retired Army, 2013. Then I went out into the big bad world of corporate America. Started a business on my own with a business partner for a few years, and then got into healthcare. And now I founded a company called Hale Media Group, wherein I too have a flagship podcast called The Bo and Luke Show, and recently had a book released that goes over a whole bunch of leadership values that I espoused to. Time on the battlefield in Iraq, 8 years at the White House under Presidents Bush and Obama, and then different experiences that I've had since I retired out in corporate America, and how I believe that a strong values-based leadership approach, or strong values in a company and everybody espousing to a set of values and behaving accordingly, can really build a great culture. And I use a lot of course, my military background in the Army to do that and to talk about that, and how to translate that in an organization that has been around for a couple hundred years plus, and how corporate America can do the same.
Wow.
Yeah.
You did some awesome work, man. And I think the listeners and anybody who knows me, I always find myself in a values and culture conversation, particularly around organizational leadership, organizational development. And there's something you say around having courage to go after it.
Yeah.
And so when you say stuff like that, what's the it that you're referring to?
Oh, I think the it, and it could be individual specific, but I think it's going after what you want to achieve. And when I say you, could be you as an individual, could be your team, your company, your organization. The it is, it's what you want to go after. It's the thing that you're chasing. It could be an achievement. It could be greater numbers of, enrollees for your college or university. It could be profitability, just a better process for doing business. It's having the courage to step out there, because people can just get stagnant and stuck. And sometimes stepping out there can be terrifying.
And so when you start talking about the values work that you begin to help organizations wrap their minds around, why that work?
It all stems from a formula. I'm like, how am I going to really express myself and and help others, help companies, organizations dive into what a values-based leadership is to me, and then how do you do that in your company or organization? And I really spent some time like, how can I put this in a formula for people to understand versus just talking about it, right? If you've ever sat in an economics class, there's a formula for about everything. So, and sometimes it helps you figure out like, what are we talking about? What's the theory here? So if you can put it in a formula. So I broke it down, and I stayed away from, I first looked at the word culture, because culture is a big topic. It's a huge topic all over the place all the time. So what is culture? And when I went to I literally, Lawrence, went to the dictionary. I said, how does the dictionary define this word? Right. And regardless of which version of the definition you use, it talks about culture being an outcome. It's a result of, well, a result of what? Right. So in the workplace, I'm like, well, let me further define that then. So if you take the way people behave, employees, everybody, top to bottom, and you put that over a time frame, 30 days, 90 days, a year, and then you multiply how they behave, or one person's behaving, by everybody in the company, you have this. If you were actually documenting it, whether you're writing it down or you had a video camera, you would see how people are behaving over time. And in reality, that's your culture. Culture's the sum of all of that. Yeah. So when I'm talking to people and they say, man, my culture is broken. Well, if the culture's broken, how do you fix that? We need to look at how's everybody behaving. Right. And I defined, so within that, your values, I defined your values as the behaviors over time. So I heard it once said that if I was to follow you around for a week and you didn't know it and I was videotaping you, I would find out in just a week what your values are, what you stand for, how you behave. Like that's who you are. That's who Lawrence is.
Yeah.
Now Ed, Lawrence, and Sue and Jim and Annie, and you put all of them together, that's their collective values. And then does a company have those values? Are people aspiring to maybe what the leadership says their values are, or aren't they? That's kind of where I start.
Man, that's a deep place to start, man, because I think the older the organization, I think the more trouble, and you alluded to it a little bit, is how do I get someone who's steeped in, they have sacred cows, the folklore and tribal wisdom is ruling the day. And you talk about, and I always say in my trainings, you can address behavior. You can't really go after feelings or emotion, because you need to find out why people are tied to something emotionally and have a strong feeling about something. Where did it come from? Because to them, what's the value? Put a name on why it's a thing for them. And I think once you start going in and you begin to do that work of really calling out what's important or the actual culture that exists, I think, and you tell me your experience with senior leaders in particular, how often are they ready to do that work?
Yeah, it's not often. It's probably the most, in my professional opinion, my personal opinion, it's probably the most important work, because and I did this research for my book, and there are studies and studies and studies that show organizations and those senior leaders who have committed to that and actually do it, their results, profits, sales, revenue growth are way ahead of their competitors in their same industry. That's just undeniable. It is, but it's not the easiest sales pitch to give, to say this is what we have to attack. Right. If your revenues are down, if your sales are down, or your culture isn't what you think it should be, it's really diving into why people are behaving the way they're behaving. And then set a course for changing behaviors.
And I always, one of the things I've constantly recognized, in even from, our time in the military, and again, you can train people how to treat you. And I think a lot of times organizations, they had good intentions with the types of cultures they wanted to have. They wanted people to be comfortable. They wanted to feel like a family environment. And I always remind people, it could be a family environment, but families understand that when you come to my house, you're not putting your feet on things. I said, you can actually train people how to treat and be an actual valued family member. I said, you can have that as an expectation. And I said, and oh, by the way, you give them this motivating factor called a paycheck. I said that increases the likelihood that they'll listen if you have or give them something to listen to. And then you build in the consistency and the discipline that you won't let things slide. And I think what's happened is people have gotten lax and in organizations, and they're a product of their own success. And they're like, it wasn't that bad that they did it that way. Well, every time you do that, you chip away at what you say you believe in. And then once you get so far down that road, it's so far gone that you don't remember what you looked like. And so when you have that organization who they're on the cusp of leaning towards getting into this work, what are some of what does it look like to have that conversation, that reassuring conversation that this is good work to do?
Wow, so that's a big question.
Yeah.
It's breaking it down in very much the format that you just did. And it's, you got to, when you're dealing with executives, you got to show them the ROI that they're going to get out of taking such an endeavor. You got to show them, highlight the stats and show them, where you're coming from, and so forth. And I think it goes beyond, it's showing them, let me make sure I say this right. It's showing them the holistic picture of their organization and where they stand. And if you want to train and model behaviors the way so that they align with a set of core values that you, as the leadership, believe in, or especially if it's a family business, this is who we are and it's what we do. I approach it, and I think this helps. So they see that there's some reality in what we're doing. So I even break that further down into everything that you espouse to be and the values that you want to have inside your organization. There's a slew of action words that go with your values, your performance within the job that each and every one of your employees is doing, right? It's those action words that need to be tied to your values, what you want your values to be, that then you are communicating to all levels of leadership, to supervisors. So when you're talking to an employee about this is how we behave, you're actually giving them real actionable things that you're looking for in them. It's not just, I want you to do your work. It's, these are the behaviors I need to see from you that will actually help you do your work and then actually help you be successful in this company. Performance management, hiring, recruiting, making sure that you're tailored. I'll give you, here's a good example. And I love it when I get solicited for, in any job I've had where I've been the head of HR, I get solicited all the time. But when someone says they come out with, here are the magic interview questions for any job. And I kind of chuckle, and I get it. They're trying to sell a book, or it's their lead in or something like that.
Yep.
But every company's different, and every company has a different set of values. So you really need to tailor at least some of them, ask questions that would pull out from someone an answer that would relate or not relate to the values in your company. So when you're trying to decide, hey, are they going to be a good cultural fit? What does that mean? You have to find the questions that you'd ask somebody for an example of X, Y, or Z that would, if they do fit, that would provide you an answer. And you'd be easily identify, yep, that's exactly what we stand for. Yeah. Without telling them what you stand for.
For sure. Right? Yeah. So that's all. That sounds great. That sounds really good. But one thing that I've encountered are those organizations that, we know exactly who we are, and it's aspirational. And you just talked about action. How do we make our verbs and turn them into things that we can see as behaviors, things that are repeatable, things that we can train folks on? But you got that senior leader that is stalling you out by saying, you're going too fast. What conversations are you having with those leaders? Some wall-to-wall
Yeah.
counseling? What are you doing with them?
Yeah. They need wall-to-wall counseling, right? That's a great term. Uh, it's the leader who's not necessarily ready to buy into what you're selling,
Yeah.
your pitch or your theory or your philosophy or theory that you're
Yeah.
bringing to them. Just like in a job interview,
Mm-hmm.
where you're selling yourself, and you're trying to bring I think the more examples, real examples,
Mm-hmm.
not theoretical examples, but real examples, that you bring to the table with a senior leader, especially if you're depending on who you're at the table with, if it is a senior executive, then you got to speak from that level
Yep.
and how this can truly impact their organization or even their legacy as a leader in the organization,
Yeah.
and what they did to help further that company along, compared to a predecessor or whatever.
Yeah.
Right? Opportunity for them to leave a legacy, and here's how you do it, here's why you do it, here's the return on the investment you're going to get, or you can get. And the more real, I'm a believer in real example,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I
I,
think that's where they find the credibility in
there you
either
go.
you as to do it and deliver.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the credibility part of it is what a lot of leaders are looking for.
Mhm.
And I would say to those leaders, having the courage to actually have the conversation in the first place. And I think most senior leaders, you invite people like us into the room. We know you only invite us because you want some work done. And so that's not the time to be hedging and say you have it all together. And
Yeah.
so for us, the value in action when having a conversation with people like us is displaying that courage, and not only that courage, but that the vulnerability of collaboration.
Yeah. That's
And
well said.
and what that means is that you're helping us understand, because you invited us here, that you don't have all the answers. If you did, you would have did it. Right. And so for us, we understand, and we're coming in with an empathetic ear because
Right.
we have something that you believe you need. And so I think just that exchange in that, and I love what you said about communicating the return on investment and the ROI at their level, right? And communicating at their level, because I think there's a level of ownership and accountability that is not garnered from that first needs analysis, that needs assessment meeting, from them, not them passing it off and Heisman trophying it to somebody else. But there's
Right.
a level of accountability and ownership that they have to have buy-in, because we're only going to be as successful as their level of engagement.
Right. I agree
That's
with
true.
that completely.
And
Absolutely
so,
true.
and for me, how do you, that CHRO is listening,
Mhm.
that GM of that division is listening, how do they begin to have this conversation with their peers that they need to bring on somebody like Bo?
Yeah. So the conversation, number one, everybody inside, if you're an organization and you're big enough to have a general manager, a CHRO, you have COO, CEO, like you're a medium to large business and you have all these roles, you are an incredibly, uh, and I hate the word busy, but you're a busy individual.
Mm-hmm.
You already have a lot on your plate, just running the company, if you will, the
Mm-hmm.
day to day, getting through the day to day operations, tasks, uh, and when you see things going off kilter and you need to adjust and your culture is not exactly what it should be or what you want it to be, it could be better. Uh, it's it's paramount to reach out to someone with the expertise who you could bring in and tackle that project, right? If you think about it in a project based type of atmosphere where you're coming in to help them solve a problem, solve a challenge, find solutions that work for their company. And I think that's key. I think it's taking, if you're a CHRO and you're inside an organization, you have your experience in that organization, and who knows how long you've been there, um, but then you bring in an outsider to help you and find those solutions. You're getting a fresh set of eyes, unbiased, eyes. I'm not biased toward the company, against the company, for the company, right? They're a client who you want to see be successful, period. You're not in anybody's corner. You're not in that camp or this camp, right? You haven't created you're not part of any particular clique. You're truly coming in with fresh eyes to look at something, help find the areas where they're vulnerable or the company's vulnerable, and how to find the right solutions, present solutions, what makes the most sense. How do you do it over a period of time? Do they implement all at once? Do a phased approach to a change initiative, whatever the case might be, where they might be vulnerable in other areas. I think that's what you get. And the companies that I think are the most successful are the ones with those leaders who are humble enough to know that, number one, that they could use the help and that it could benefit them tenfold compared to what might cost them to bring you in. And then if they actually execute, there's huge benefit for them and their company. It's the concept of, exploit someone's assets. So if you're bringing in a consultant or a trainer or a coach or whatever, exploiting them for all of their strengths to help you where you need to go so that you can focus on your strengths. Because everybody has their strengths and weaknesses, right? And sometimes internal, it's fascinating because I've experienced it internal and external. When you're internal inside an organization, and even if you're one of the executives, right? You're viewed in a certain way.
Yeah.
You just are. But then if you were not the internal person, but you're the same person, now you come in from the outside and you're external, you're viewed in a different way. Mm-hmm. You're the same person with the same toolkit, the same brains and strengths that you were if you were sitting there, at the table, as one of the internal executives. So sometimes it's just a matter of how you're viewed, and hey, let's bring in a consultant to help us through this.
Exactly. Yeah. And again, we understand that world of being a force multiplier.
Yeah, that's what it is.
All right. And allowing people to do necessary work, and then where you can hand it off to other subject matter experts to do some focused, continuous improvement work. And that's really what this is all about. And so it is. I appreciate you hanging out with me today, Bo.
You're most welcome.
Having this conversation around work that I believe for a lot of us, not just veterans, in this coaching, leadership, and training space, it's a sustainability project. All right. That's really what it's about. It's not just a event. It's not just a one-off. This is something you're signing up for, a sustainability of your culture, of your organization, to be a legacy for years to come. And it's all starts with leading and launching from a good, solid foundation and making sure you have some solid values in place, because again, it's all about, can I repeat the process? And if it's a moving target, no, you can't. That's not sustainable. And so for values-based leadership development and organizational culture development, you need to make sure that you're equipping your organization with the right resources from a development standpoint, a training and education standpoint, and then some type of sustainability strategy to make sure they're getting the resources they need to continue this work. And so,
absolutely right.
Bo, how can people locate you, find you, and get more of your content?
Yeah, so you have a couple places. RobertBrabo.com. That's my webpage. TheBoandLukeShow.com for our podcast. We put a lot of information out there. From there you can get in touch with us, me specifically. Bo@RobertBrabo.com. And that's Brabo's Brabo. It's a Bravo at the end. Often gets confused with Bravo, but that's a B at the end. By all means, and on LinkedIn, that's a big platform for connections. So Robert Brabo on LinkedIn, you'll find me. Not too many Brabos out there. So in the United States anyways, on LinkedIn, you'll find me no problem.
That's good
Thanks,
stuff.
Lawrence, for asking.
Well, oh, no, my pleasure, man. And so thank you again for sharing. And my friend, come on anytime. let me know, and we can do the verbal banter as much as you want.
Well, we need to do the same. We need to get you on our
Definitely.
podcast to talk the same leadership and so forth. It would be an honor for us. And the more people we can reach and connect to, the more we can help.
It would be an honor. I appreciate you both, and I'll be talking to you soon.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks, Lawrence.
Have a good one.